So, Colonel, best case, worst case scenario here. Okay, best case, obviously we know what the best case is. Okay, they figured out it's done. There's a way to coexist and everything goes smoothly. How bad is the worst case? This question's been asked. Many people have gone to different places. Give different elements of worst case.
Here's the thing that concerns me most of all, that could lead to the quote unquote worst case, which I regard as a nuclear exchange. All right. No one in Russia, Putin, no one in Beijing, neither government has an interest in launching a nuclear weapon. I mean, they understand that if you use a nuclear weapon, the rapidity with which war will escalate is mind-numbing. That's the great myth of the so-called tactical nuclear weapon that you hear from the U.S. Air Force and others and the Navy. Oh, well, we can shoot a nuke, a low yield, only 5 kilotons, only kill maybe 30 or 40,000 people. No one will notice. In other words, this is a useful battlefield weapon. Outrageous nonsense. It is not. If any nuclear weapon is used, everybody escalates. And the reason for that is simple. Everyone's afraid that if they don't use their arsenal, they'll lose it. But that means that you have to recognize two things. First of all, in Europe, these borders have changed dozens of times over 1,000 years. Everybody looks at this border that constitutes the current Ukrainian construct and says, oh, well, that can never change. It's absurd. It never made any sense when Lenin created it because the Ukrainians lived primarily west of the Dnieper and a little bit to the east to the very northern edge of White Russia. That's it. And this thing called Ukraina, which means on the edge or the margin or something, had been ruled by the Duchy of Lithuania, then the Kingdom of Poland, then the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth for hundreds of years. And ownership passed back and forth with Russia because the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth fell apart largely on its own. My point is that we are imputing a degree of legitimacy to these borders that was never there. And that was Putin's speech that he gave months ago, long before the war, saying, look, these borders don't make any sense because you've got all these Russians in the east. Brzezinski, when he was alive, pointed to that and said, that's dangerous. We need to sit down and talk with the Russians and fix this problem because otherwise the presence of all of these Russians in eastern Ukraine is going to end up being a catalyst for war. Now, we thought we could get the Ukrainians to maintain a quote-unquote multinational, multicultural state where these people would be accepted and could live as co-equals.
This is the Minsk Accords that you said.
Yes,
Later,
yeah.
people said, no, we were lying.
Yeah, but the truth is, in Europe, how well have multinational, multilingual, multicultural states worked? Well, not so good. The Soviet Union fell apart instantly, and what do you have now? Multiple nations. Yugoslavia fell apart very rapidly. You have multiple nations. Czechoslovakia fell apart instantly because Czechs and Slovaks didn't want to live together. This is the history of Europe. And historically, great powers have come to terms with each other and said, look, let's come up with this compromise. It may not be perfect. We may have to revisit this in 20 years, but let's get peace. In other words, let's establish peace first. Then we can come back and revisit it in the future as necessary to ensure everybody's interests are met. We won't do that. We have built ourselves up into this foolish notion that we're the indispensable superpower.
Well, if there's one thing that I have known for a very long time about the Ukraine-Russia conflict is that the military-industrial complex is the one making the big buck. They are the one winning the most. Because you need to ask yourself, right, what is in for Ukraine? Well, Ukraine might argue that they don't want their territories to be taken away by Russia. Well, that's a legitimate reason. Russia might also say that we don't want NATO on our doorstep. We don't want NATO in Ukraine. And they might have a reason for saying that, or that reason might also be justifiable. But does this warrant them to fight each other? Don't they realize that fighting each other isn't getting any of them anywhere? Haven't they realized that negotiating this whole thing will be way more better than actually having this outright war? And if I can point out, You know, a couple of weeks, I think last week, yeah, some leaders from Africa went to Europe to talk about this whole, to kind of like offer a peace deal, like a way forward for peace between Russia and Ukraine. So first they met with Zelensky, and then they went to meet with Putin. So I was shocked when I saw the document that Putin shows to the delegation from Africa and told them that a peace deal was already in the making, a peace deal that Ukraine signed, but unfortunately, Ukraine did not uphold their own end of the bargain, that Ukraine went against the peace deal after they signed it. And remember, Ukraine didn't come out to debunk it. Ukraine haven't said anything up till now. They have kept quiet about the whole issue, which means that Russia or Putin might be saying the truth about the peace deal. Putin might be correct to point out that he wanted peace, that he really didn't want this whole conflict, but that he had no choice, and that the Americans and the Europeans forced his hand into this whole conflict. He might be right, because as soon as the leaders of Africa left Ukraine, a Ukrainian top advisor to Vladimir Zelensky came out and insulted, if I may put it that way, African leaders who went there. He said that they came to Ukraine with nothing to propose, and that the whole visit wasn't for the Ukrainians, wasn't like to bring peace between Ukraine and Russia, but it was meant to bolster their own image, which I find that very funny, right? Because other leaders from all over the world have gone to Ukraine, have gone to Russia, but Ukraine didn't say they came empty-handed, or what they brought was kind of like baseless, and that they didn't understand the whole conflict. Ukraine never said that. But as soon as Africa went there and tried to like propose something that might bring peace, Ukrainians were like, these African dudes don't know anything. They came here just so they can bolster their own image. They were not really here for the Ukrainians, which I find that to be very, very double standard. It's really, really poor. And then again, I have to say this before I go. I know I have said this before. I have said it many times, but I have to say it one more time. Ukraine and Russia must realize that they fighting each other isn't going to benefit them. And in fact, if you ask my own personal opinion, I would say that Ukraine is the bigger loser. Why? Because Ukraine is being destroyed. The cities are being destroyed. The people are being killed. Okay, this whole conflict is on Ukrainian soil. Okay, so a lot of people are losing their lives. A lot of people are suffering. A lot of people have had their houses destroyed. A lot of Ukrainian cities have been ruined. So at the end of the day, Ukraine is still going to be the bigger loser. They might win the conflict, but they will still lose, because they will have their own country in total ruins. Zelensky has to see this. Zelensky has to realize that he should do some compromise. And I know, people might say that it sounds very easy for me to say, because I'm not the leader. I'm not the one governing the whole country. That's for sure. That's for sure. But ask yourself this question. Just ask yourself. Let's be realistic for a second. Ask yourself this question. How do you think this whole thing will end? Let me know. Educate me. Maybe I'm being too naive and too short-sighted. Right? I might be that. But ask yourself, how do you think this whole conflict will end? Will Russia just pull back? And let's say they do. Let's say for some reason, Vladimir Putin was overthrown, or maybe he got tired of the whole thing and decided to just pull out the whole troops. What happened next? What happened to Ukraine? Okay, Ukraine has all its territory, yes, but what happened? The country has been destroyed. People have died. The country is in ruins. And one more important thing, Ukraine is only getting all the support they are getting now because there is no proxy war going on around the world, because America is fully focused on them. America's attention is not divided. God forbid China invades Taiwan and America is forced to divert some of its attention to Taiwan. And let's see how Ukraine will fight this war. And let's see how much support Ukraine will get from the West. And let's see how much friendly America will be towards Ukraine. Because if there's one thing I have learned from history, is that America only comes when their own interest is threatened. As soon as they achieve what they wanted, they will pull out. They won't care about what happened next. But you guys out there, what is your take on the Russian-Ukraine conflict? Do you think there is still a negotiable way out of the conflict? Let us know in the comment section below, because like always, we love hearing your thoughts and opinions on the things we cover on this show. And please don't forget to like this video, share this video, follow our Facebook page, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel, because little bit of goodwill, like the one you're doing just now, help us a lot, and we shall forever be grateful to you. So thank you very much for doing just that. And like always, see you in the next one.